What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Wager Alarm live stream. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me, of course, Craig Mish. It's time to get back to those Major League Baseball wins totals. Last time we did the American League, time to hit that National League. And I got to tell you, Craig, starting off with the National League East is actually going to be a pretty exciting division to discuss. Because if you're talking about a bunch of powerhouses just beating up on each other all season long with that imbalanced schedule, this is what we're at.
Yeah, and you had a number of teams in the division, unlike the rest of the league, adding players. The Mets added players. Of course, the Phillies did too. And then without a doubt, no matter what you want to say about the Washington Nationals, losing Bryce Harper, they added a very big piece, a very big starting pitcher to their core too. The Braves were the one team that didn't end up doing as much as I think some people thought. And we're going to have to see now if it comes back to bite them, because the opportunity to get a lot of those players is now gone. And they've had some key injuries too. But as of now, we'll take a look at that division. And then, of course, the Central, which I think more or less looks like what it did last year. But that doesn't necessarily mean the win totals will be the same. And then, of course, in the NL West, the team that still is a little bit of a mystery, I think, going into the season is the San Diego Padres, because they did add Manny Machado. But how many wins is he worth this year? Is their pitching going to be good enough? This young kid, Paddock, how many wins will he add to their win total? So we'll run through all of the teams in baseball and we'll kind of pick some out. Just for clarity purposes, because I am credentialed and go to all of the games in Miami for the Miami Marlins, anybody who ever wants an opinion on the team and the players and all that, I'm very happy to do it. But from a betting perspective, throughout our live streams on Fantasy Alarm, that is the one team that I'm not going to go on or against all season long. So that's the one team I'm going to stay away from, only because I cover the team every day. So I apologize for those of you who want to do that. But certainly I'm very happy to answer questions on players and how I think they'll do this year, and even give my opinion on how many games they may win. But just from a strictly betting Wager Alarm live stream, I'm going to just stay away from that team, and I'll do everything else.
All right, I can get down with that. I can be fine with that. We don't need to put you on the spot here when it's not necessary. The over-under there, according to at least the Westgate, is 63 wins. This is a team that's just, I mean, listen, can you at least evaluate the team from just a straight up standpoint?
Yeah, we can start with them
let's do that and get it out of the way.
Without a doubt, the Marlins offense is going to struggle this season. They added veterans that they're going to try and resuscitate a little bit of their careers and then trade them at the end of July. Neil Walker, Curtis Granderson, and then, of course, Sergio Romo. Those are the three veterans that they added. They have a couple of nice young core pieces like Brian Anderson, who is one of those. And then they have Starlin Castro, who people forget went to 4 All-Star games. Jorge Alfaro, if he's healthy, will be behind the plate. The key to this team is the pitching. We're seeing these guys go out there. The Marlins have won 10 straight spring training games. They are playing out amazing. Their pitchers are throwing like no-hitters and shutouts. And there's a chance that some of that could carry over into the regular season. But, Howard, these are all very young pitchers. I can't see any of them throwing 200 innings. And there are not going to be reinforcements on the way with the talent of those. So it's going to be a tough year again for them. The Marlins are not going to the postseason. Without a doubt, the Vegas number, what does that represent? If the Marlins can get past that number and not lose 100 games, I think it's a successful season. I don't think that you can look at spring training wins and losses and translate that over to the regular season. But I do think if their pitching is there, they can stay in some games. I think what you have to ask yourself is, when they're going against the Phillies and they're going against the Nationals and they're going against the Braves, and let's say the Mets are better and they're down 5-1, that's going to be it. They don't have the offense to come back. So their pitching's really going to have to keep them in the games. I'll be at a lot of them this season, and we'll follow it as we go.
We'll definitely follow it as we go. Yeah, I'm not impressed at all with what they've got going on right now. Listen, I know they've got some interesting parts. Caleb Smith is an interesting young pitcher to take a look at and see what he's capable of doing. But overall, from a fantasy standpoint, from a betting standpoint, I'll probably be doing a lot of betting against the Marlins myself here. But I mean, again, it's not, it's not a team that impresses me. It's not, and it's a shame.
And that's a fair assessment. That's a fair assessment. But the pitching may be a little bit better than what people think. But there's no doubt the hitting on the team is not going to be good. And
right. And the pitching is just not going to withstand it. You talked about the fact that it's going to be a struggle for those guys to hit 200 innings. I think it's going to be a struggle. I mean, especially if they're if they're kind of peaking right now here in spring training, maybe it's a nice April, but the other 5 months are going to be
a lot of young pitchers. Yeah,
yeah.
It's going to be at some point some guys will get shut down, and August will come, and September will come, and then what are you relying on at that point? And they'll probably be playing against teams like Washington, like Philly, like they're all going to be competing.
Well, and that's the thing, is that this pitching looks great right now. But, I mean, let's talk about these other teams in the division here. Let's talk about the fact that the Phillies beefed themselves up with Bryce Harper. Let's talk about the fact that when you're talking about the Braves and it's Acuna and Freeman and Ozzie Albies
and Donaldson.
And Donaldson adding on there. The Mets even made some interesting moves in order to improve their offense. Plus, you've got youngsters like Pete Alonso who's going to take that step, or hopefully take that step. So the thing about it is that you could be a great pitcher, but there's a reason that the Nats went out and tried to get themselves even better with Patrick Corbin, is because they're looking at the offense from all of these other teams, and they're realizing that with this imbalanced schedule, it's going to be very, very difficult for these teams not to just kind of beat up on each other and really just give themselves a hard time. Like, probably you could see a wild card team coming out of here, but on the other hand, you could, of course. But if, let's say, with the imbalanced schedule, these teams are just beating the crap out of each other on a regular basis.
That's true, too.
All of a sudden, there's like the Central, maybe somebody creeps in the West. So it's a very difficult situation there. That's all we could say about the Marlins. That's all we really want to say about the Marlins.
Right, fair enough. Let's go to the next team.
I don't even need to discuss whether it's going to be over or under 63. They won 63 last year. Flip a coin. How about that? Flip a coin on that one. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about let's go with the Braves. Let's do the Braves. Sure. Mm-hmm. Westgate says 86 wins for the Braves this year. Last year, Braves were a 90-win team. They add Josh Donaldson, but it's the pitching that's really the problem right now. Mike Foltynewicz, I'm sorry, man, but Foltynewicz to me looks like he could be headed towards Tommy John. He's already had thoracic outlet syndrome surgery. And now it's looking like the elbow's barking even more, so I worry about that. Yeah, they've got some good depth from the youngsters, but I don't know, man. 86 wins now all of a sudden looks a little difficult when you don't have the pitching staff that we thought they were walking in with.
Yeah, I think you have to go under here, and I think you have to feel pretty good about it. You mentioned Foltynewicz, and let's just say hypothetically that he is healthy and he comes back at some point in May or June. That doesn't eliminate April. Also, Kevin Gausman, who I don't like to begin with, has not looked good in the spring, and his velocity is down as well. They were counting on the ninth inning being led by two guys, Vizcaíno and Minter's hurt. O'Day is also hurt. Both those guys are going to start the season on now the new injured list. And from a hitting perspective, yeah, I mean, adding Donaldson was really nice and good, and I think Acuna will be a star, and they do have a really good offense. But would it be a huge shock to see them win 83 games or 82 games? No. And so I think they had an opportunity this offseason to do some things. They had an opportunity to get Dallas Keuchel when it probably was worth getting Dallas Keuchel. Now I don't know that I would do it. And they had an opportunity to get JT Realmuto. And instead they're going with Brian McCann and Tyler Flowers. So Kyle Wright and Touki Toussaint, they do have some nice young pitchers coming on. And I think that 2019 may be a little bit more painful than they thought, which will make that team really go for it in 2020, I hope. They have one of the best farm systems in baseball, and they're hanging on to all these players. They have no room to even play Austin Riley. They could have traded him too. So I'm going to go under on Atlanta for this season, but I don't think it'll be by a lot. I do feel comfortable in saying it that probably in the 82-83 win range, which, by the way, is not a bad season for them. Who would have known that they were going to get punched in the face with all these injuries in the spring? Really hard to overcome.
It's very hard to overcome when you're sitting there and you're trying to make that assessment. Yeah, I'm going to sit there and look at the fact that they might be super deep with their pitching staff in the minors, but, Toussaint, Kyle Wright, these guys are good names, good solid, potential, but I'm not going to sit and rely too heavily on them.
No, 100 innings apiece, right? Like these kids don't throw 180 innings their first time. No one does anymore.
No, everybody's coddled now. I mean, they're building. That's why all the bullpens are built the way they're built right now. So I'm with you on that one. I'll take the under there. Yeah. I'm also kind of looking at the under here for the New York Mets. Listen, I get it.
We're on the same page so far here.
Are we?
Yeah,
77 wins
page.
last year. They're 85 and a half right
Too
now.
Too high.
I don't. Yeah. Are they really like an 8.5 win better team this year than last year? Why? Because maybe Noah Syndergaard stays healthy. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's really. I don't like Steven Matz. I don't
even think it's just him. I think it's a matter of, one of their other key acquisitions, Jed Lowry, is also hurt going into the season. Now, don't get me wrong.
When isn't Lowry hurt?
I do think that Conforto could potentially have a really good year. I think Alonso could have a very good year. If they can find Dominic Smith's had a great spring too. He's somebody else that I would like to find playing time for. And Robinson Cano could still hit, and he's going to help that team. And the back end of the bullpen, regardless of how you feel about closers, if Edwin Diaz is just half the dude that he was last year with Familia there, they're going to be better than they were last year. But better from 77 to 80 or 81 or 82. I mean, the Mets could take you right down the road toward the end, toward that 85. But just from a betting perspective, you just have to go under. And that's where you circle back to, okay, all those things go well for them offensively. And then you go back to the pitching again. And when has it happened that all four of those starters, and it was Matt Harvey was the fifth in the past, but when has it happened where DeGrom and Syndergaard and Wheeler and Matz have all made it through, and they've all been, it just never has happened. And so how can you possibly count on that happening and this being the year? I can't count on it. And so I will go under as well on that 85.5.
Yeah, all right. Phillies. Now, this is the interesting one here. They won 80 games last year. They've got them at 89 right now. They add Bryce Harper. We know that. I mean, the lineup is sick. They added Harper. They added Gene Segura. They've got great table setters. They've got great protection in that lineup. They add Real Muto, which is going to end up being a huge thing, not just for their offense, though, but for their pitching staff as well. Like, I think having a guy like Real Muto behind the plate is going to do wonders for Nick Pivetta. It's going to do wonders for Zach Eflin. It's going to do wonders. He could even nicely calm down a guy like Vince Velasquez, who continuously overthrows. So Nola, solid. Arrieta, hard to be worse than he was last year at times. The improvement on the offense here, I know it's a 9-game jump from where they were last year. I see them as at least a 90 to 92 win team, at least. So I'm going to take the over on these guys.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention Andrew McCutchen.
Who's he?
And he's a big part of this, too. They just are stacked. And the other part of this, too, is when you're betting totals, you have to look ahead. You can't just look at right now where it's going to be, where they're going to be in April. When July 31st comes, if the Phillies are in it, they're going to acquire whatever they need to get over the top. They're not going to stop there. They're all in for this season. Right. Now, the only thing that I have seen that seems to be holding them back potentially is some of the defensive metrics on their team. They're considered a below average defensive team outside of Real Muto behind the plate. But I just see a ton of offense there. Nola, to me, has the potential to win the Cy Young. I think Arrieta is going to have a bounce-back season. And you know what? It's another one of these teams that's a 5-and-dive team. You got Hector Neris. You got David Robertson. You got Sir Anthony Dominguez. Neshek isn't bad either. They have a good bullpen, too. They really... Yeah. I hate to overreact to teams that sign so many free agents because it just doesn't always work in that first year. But I do think it will work with Philadelphia, and I like the over also here. And I think that 100 may be a stretch in the division they play in, but I would have to say 93, 95 wins for them. Okay,
so I'm erring a little bit more on the side of caution there. But, you know, again, you make a good point about bringing in a number of free agents. The character of the free agents, though, that they brought in, Real Muto, McCutchen, Segura, these are very clubhouse-friendly guys. These are, you know, I mean, whatever.
They have really... Hoskins also, and then the kid in the minors who's tearing it up, Cousins, they could trade him for something. They could trade Quinn for something if they need to.
And I'll tell you what, and I said this the other day on the air, and I really mean it. Bryce Harper, who to me for the longest time has been just the consummate douche, is the best way I can put it. He really has been. He acts like that. When he came in and sat down at that press conference and explained why he was wearing number 3, and not his usual number 34. And paying homage to Roy Halladay the way he did. It was a class move. It was a class move in a city that, like, really, like New York, like Boston, the fan base overreacts to stuff like that a lot. And when I say overreacts, I mean, like, they now have complete open arms for him. Really? You just said all of that about Roy Halladay? Come here. Let me give you a big hug. Let me buy you a cheesesteak. You're the best guy ever. And I think that he came in with the right attitude there. You mix that with the personalities of the other teams they brought into that clubhouse there, and I do like it a lot. I really do. So, yeah, I'm on the over here for the Phillies as well.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Washington.
Washington Nationals. Now, here's it. 89 is the mark that they're at right now.
Toughest one probably of all of them.
7 wins. Are they better? Does Corbin make them a better team? Like, does Ryan Zimmerman bounce back? And the addition of Corbin. What's going on with their bullpen? The addition of Trevor Rosenthal now in front of Sean Doolittle. Does this make them a seven win team better? I'm going to say yes, that I will go with the over, but I'm not putting any money on it. Like, I'll lean
it would be a pass for me too. Yeah, I would say over as well. It will be a pass for me because I think really the big unknown here is Victor Robles. And is Victor Robles a superstar? Is he just okay? Like, we really don't know for sure. I think there's a chance he has to be. He could be a star. I know that Juan Soto is one. I think Trey Turner is one. Anthony Rendon already is one. Yan Gomes is torn up spring training. I don't know what this guy's going to do this year, but he's been fantastic. And then 1 through 3, I like him. And then 1 through 3, Scherzer, Corbin, Strasburg. That's a really tough pitching staff to beat. You mentioned Rosenthal and Doolittle in the 8th and 9th inning. I don't think that the Nationals are a bad team. I think they're good. But again, there's that little strange factor. Is Soto an MVP this year, or does he take a step back? There's a couple of questions there. It wouldn't surprise me to see Washington win the division and win 100 games. It also wouldn't surprise me to see them win like 83, 84. So I'm just going to push them to the side, but I will say that at the end of the season, I definitely believe they're winning more games than the Marlins and Mets. That I will say for sure. Whether they get above Atlanta and Philadelphia is another story, but I would have their win total above Miami and New York.
All right, beautiful. So that's going to wrap up the National League East. Let's move over to the Central, and let's start it off with last year's division winner, Milwaukee. So the Brew Crew last year, would they win? 97. Bam! Sometimes, you get taken back by that. 96 wins last year.
96 wins, yeah.
And Westgate has them at 86.5.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, I don't mind the Westgate doing this and dropping them down so far. Here is a team that so desperately needs starting pitching, and for whatever reason or another, they refuse to go after it. They refused to sign anybody last year. They're not signing anybody this year. They're pinning all these weird hopes on Jimmy Nelson, okay, who hasn't thrown regularly in how long? So I'm kind of concerned about this. Do they drop off that dramatically? The question is has the rest of the division gotten better? Because the only reason they won 96 games last year was because the division was so poor against them.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the teams in the division did okay. It's just that Milwaukee had that last 2 months from Yelich where he just was hitting home runs every day and he was carrying the team, and they did not look like a 97 win team at the All-Star break. It's what they really did in the second half. So I agree with you, but I will go over that number. I do think that they are good enough to go over. I know what you're saying about the pitching, but they had the number 1 bullpen in all of baseball last year. Usually that's a sign to regress the following year. Usually when you have such a great bullpen, you go the other way, and Jeffers is hurt going into the season. But I don't think it will take a ton to accomplish that number, and their pitching has been able to piece it together. And Chassin did a great job for them. You got to call it how it is. He pitched great for them. And Chase Anderson, look, they have these just middling guys that you don't think are really going to do very much. But
barely middling guys.
But Woodruff and Freddie Peralta, it's not like they're bereft of anything there. So Aguilar could certainly do what he did last year. Shaw could do the same thing. I think Yelich could do the same thing again, too. He's toured up spring training as well. They got
bringing
Grandal.
Bringing back Moustakas was a big one, and yeah, adding Grandal behind the plate is going to be nice.
They're gonna win above that. 97 seems high. I would never predict them to win 97, but 91, 92 wins.
All right, so we'll take the over there on Milwaukee with their 86.5. I'd get behind it. I still, I do. I worry about that starting pitch.
You should. It is a reason to worry. But
and it bums me out because I think that, in all honesty, I do think that this team could destroy a number of teams in the National League and put themselves in a position to win the World Series if they just went out and got themselves just one ace. Let
me ask you this question. If I told you at the end of the season, and I didn't give you any of their starting pitching stats, but I told you that Hader did exactly the same thing this year or better, how many wins would you say?
Oh,
you'd say they had a great year.
Yeah, they would.
Because
he's unreal.
Make no mistake about it. He was in the conversation for the MVP of the National League last year. Not the winner, not second, not third, but he was in the conversation for it because of how good he was. And if he's that good this year, he's a game changer. 3 days a week for 2 innings at a time in the 6th and 7th inning. He's a very dominant pitcher.
He's an extremely dominant pitcher. I would love to have him. Listen, my Yankees have Dellin Betances, who when
nobody was
started,
like Hader, right? He was like
when Betances first started, he was Hader. So there, you got something to look forward to, Josh. There it is, getting blown up. All right, let's go to the Cubs. 95-game winner last year. 88.5 is the mark. They didn't do anything except cry poverty the entire offseason. All their money's tied up. They couldn't do anything. I could still see them winning 90 games, though. I mean, Chris Bryant, I could see him bouncing back easily from last year. Anthony Rizzo had a good but not a great year last year. Javier Baez, I think, is a next level player as well. I worry about some of the holes that they've got floating around in the outfield there. I mean, it's still paying Jason Hayward.
This is one of those conversations where you're talking yourself out of going on the over. That's how it feels like it's going.
No. Listen, I think with the horses that they've got going on right now, and even with the pitching. Listen, John Lester goes out there and strikes out 200 and wins,
until he doesn't.
Games.
Until he doesn't.
But no,
I'm going under.
I'm going over. Why are you going under?
I'm going under on the Cubs. And again, I know what their Pagoda projection was. That was a big discussion a month ago. How Pagoda, their projection was for them to win like 70-something games. I think they'll win more than that. I have a lot of concerns with the Cubs. I mean, Chatwood is a disaster. Darvish could be done. I don't even know. He's a disaster. I don't think they love Contreras and his defense. You're right about Bryant. You're right about Baez. And I guess you're right about Rizzo too. Those three guys can hold it down for them offensively, but I don't think they have the pitching. I don't think they have the bullpen. And then arguably one of the best managers in the game was not given an extension, and they're letting him walk going into his last year. What does that tell you? Oof. I don't like it at all. I don't like the feeling of them going into the season. I don't think they make the postseason. I am out on them. I'm going under.
Okay. All right. You make a good argument there. Make a very good argument. I'll think about it. What, I don't even remember what it was that I talked myself into.
It was a football game. The spread. Minus 4. Yeah. Oh, 3. All right, I'll take the pick.
Oh, okay, why not? Yes, I'll take the Orlando Apollos with minus 15.5.
Our favorite team.
Oh, they took their first loss.
They got them.
You didn't even know that, did you?
I have no idea.
All right, so you're down on the Cubbies here. 88.5 is the number. You're saying under.
83 wins for the Cubs this year.
83 for you. I got you. I'll still lean towards the over, but you're making me less and less happy about it.
Well.
Let's go to the Reds here. 78.5 is the mark here for the Reds. Last year they were only 67 wins. Did they do enough in order to, is Sonny Gray's old high school pitching coach enough to give this team an extra 10 wins on the season?
Yeah, they did a lot of nice things for 1-year deals. I think Puig could have a very big year. That ballpark is great offensively, but the problem is, Howard, that ballpark's also great offensively for the other team too. So I don't know. I see them better. I thought that they still had a little bit more to do to get over the top. I will say this, and I don't want to lose sight of giving teams credit that tried, because there's so many teams that didn't, and they did by adding Puig and adding Kemp and adding Alex Wood and adding Sonny Gray, and they even tried to get Real Muto too. They tried. David Bell's a good manager. I like him in his first year, and I think the Reds will be better, but I think they set this number a little too high for me. I don't think they're better than Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh's team better. And let's be honest, the concern is there. Another one of those teams. Let's say I'm wrong and the Cubs are good. And let's say that the Brewers and Cardinals are good. They get to July 31st. Puig's a free agent. What are they going to do with him?
Well, that's what you were just saying. You rattled off like 4 or 5 names right there that they brought in, just like the Marlins brought in some veteran talent to sell off at the deadline as well. Kemp is not a long-term guy.
No. Puig is not either.
No, and I think I do not like him in that city. I mean,
he may end up having a great year, but it's dicey because you're running the risk of them not being in it and having to make that choice on July 31st. And what would the Reds' choice be if they're looking up and they're 10 or 15 games out? They're going to trade everything they can, including Alex Wood.
Yeah. So,
and including Iglesias and some of these other guys that they have. So it's probably more of a pass than anything for me. But if I had to, it would be the under. I see them as better, and I give them credit for that. But if they made a 5-game improvement over last year on the positive side, I don't think anybody would have beef with that.
All right. Well, so then something tells me that you're going to start tilting towards the over on Pittsburgh here. 78 is the mark.
Pittsburgh, yeah.
Would they win 82 last year?
And I think they'll win the same thing again. They're the same exact team. They're pretty good.
Dude, come on. Josh Harrison and Jordy Mercer, the best double play combo this side of the Mississippi.
My mind. I'm going under.
There it is. They lose those 2 guys?
Look, Dickerson is a serviceable player.
Mm-hmm.
Marte is a serviceable player. Maybe Gong adds a little bit to the equation this year for them. I'm not sure. Bell can't have a worse year than he did last year, I don't think. Polanco will miss half the season, but they still have this kid, Adam Frazier, who just set the world on fire when he came up last year. Jameson Taillon's pretty solid. Trevor Williams won a lot of games last year. Maybe Archer's better in the National League. I could see it. Their closer is good. Their bullpen is fine. The Pirates, it feels like they do just enough to keep you interested, and I think that's the same thing this year. So a tight number there at 78. Slightly over for me with them, but I would. Yeah. This is one that I wouldn't not bet. I would bet this one because a lot of their players on July 31st are all young kids, so they're not going to be selling off the farm for other guys. So I would. And by the way, they have young kids coming up. Brian Hayes will end up playing. This other kid in the outfield, Jason Martin, Keller, their starting pitcher. They have a future there. They could be better in the second half than the first. So Pittsburgh ain't winning the World Series, but I'll go over this number.
I'll go over on that also. I definitely like it a lot. I think that. Even a possible improvement on last year, but we'll have to wait and see. Everybody's in on Taillon this year. Everybody thinks that this guy is, has like Cy Young potential all of a sudden. I've seen some
good. There's other guys that are ahead of him, but there's no question, Howard, that he has the chance to do that, and that would put them way over if he ended up doing that. But it's not like he's there on an island by himself. He's got Archer and Trevor Williams, both who come in with question marks for sure, but they're going to throw 170 to 200 innings, both of them, provided they're healthy, and that's just huge. And then a rookie coming up too with a chance to be in that rotation also. So I am in on the over on that one.
All right, I dig it. Let's move over to the West.
Well, the Cardinals. You got to do the Cardinals.
Oh, I forgot about St. Louis. Why do I forget about St. Louis? Paul Goldschmidt's new team here. 88 wins is what the Westgate is saying. Last year, they won 88. Did they make themselves a better team? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to take the over on this one here. I think Jack Flaherty takes his game to the next level. I love the addition of Goldschmidt. I think Carpenter, he's not going to have the power that he once had, but I definitely still think that he's a solid enough player over here. And I think that they've got enough youth in the outfield between Tyler O'Neill and Harrison Bader that we don't have to worry so much about guys like Dexter Fowler, floating around out there being garbage.
Yeah, Paul DeJong got hurt. He was a good player until he got hurt last year. Had he not, It was a freak injury. I think he got hit, right? His forearm or something like that. He got hit by a pitch. Their pitching is fantastic. They can't figure out who to start as their fifth starter, Dakota Hudson or John Gant. I think both those guys are good. Their bullpen's fine. They got Andrew Miller now. They got Jordan Hicks. They got kids still coming in the minor leagues. Alex Reyes can't even fit in as a starter. They have nowhere to put Carlos Martinez. I think 90 wins is a disappointment for the Cardinals this season. I don't know that they're going to win 100, but they're going to be in the high 90s, I think. And to me, as we sit here in the offseason, Harper, great. Machado, great. To me, Goldschmidt in a walk year is going to be phenomenal on that team this year. I mean, he is playing for a contract. Ozuna's playing for a contract too. I think St. Louis is at least 90 wins, man. That number is just too low. I got them winning the division this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I got them 1 and Milwaukee 2. Those are the two teams that make it.
Perfectly fine with that. I'm not going to argue against it. I do think that the 88 is definitely low for them based on the improvements that they made. I'm not a Carlos Martinez fan. I don't know what he's going to be like if he ever gets over this injury.
You're probably right.
But for the same token, like you said, they brought in Andrew Miller to bridge the gap between, whoever the middle relievers are with Jordan Hicks, who will hopefully just close out games. He needs a little bit more movement on that fastball, but
yeah, he walks a lot of guys, but they still have some other options there. And by the way, kids in the minors too. By the way, Alex Reyes is still there also. Like they have plenty to get it done. And you illustrated some of those guys that they have. Not to mention Gomber, Ponce de Leon. Remember when they brought those guys up last year? They started throwing no hitters, back-to-back shutouts.
Yeah,
They're just loaded. They are just loaded, and
which is funny because Dakota Hudson, the guy who didn't get called up last year, he's the one I like the most.
And he could be their 5. It's very. I don't know what they're going to do. They got Gant's been great too, and we know Gant doesn't have the skill set of Hudson, but Gant has been so awesome this spring. It's like, what message are you going to send to this guy? Like, you could not have done any better, so you're gone. I don't know. It's if I was another team, I'd try to trade for John Gant and put him as my 3 in the rotation. They were just so deep.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, so there you go. That's the Central. Let's move over to the West. We're going to save the Padres for last, Craig. We're going to save them for last. Let's start off with the best team in the division. No doubt about it. They're going to be the super sleeper of the century here. That's those San Francisco Giants, right? They've got them earmarked for 74 wins. Last year, what did the Giants win? 73. I'm going to take the under on this one here because this team is hot trash.
Yeah, no chance at a 74 win. This is the first time that it feels like the organization is going in the right direction. It really feels like it with Farhan Zaidi coming in. I know they made that play for Harper. Who really knows if they did or not, honestly? Like we'll never really know for sure what was going on behind the scenes there with Boris engaging some of the other teams. But this is the way that they got to go. They got to take that step back, let some of these big contracts come off the books and go young again. Their farm system, they have a couple of young kids, but not enough. They drafted a kid in the first round last year, Joey Bart, this catcher. He's going to be a star in 2 years. Helio Ramos is an outfielder. He'll be a star in 2 years from now. But, Howard, this is a 2 to 3 year thing, and the guys that they have on their team right now shouldn't be starting for like 25 other teams. Bell, Longoria, Crawford, Panic. I mean, these are guys that played on that 2012 World Series team. Come on, man. It's over. Their outfield is rough. I do like Duger, the outfielder. I think he's got something to him, maybe a little bit. But the pitching, I mean, Bumgarner, they're going to trade him in July, without a doubt. They're going to trade him, get him into a place where he can win. You could see it now. He's pitching for somebody in the World Series in Game 3, right? Just another team. So if you're a Giants fan, I'm sorry, this is just not your year, but it is the direction that they needed to go. They've been desperate to try and rebuild this thing. It is so hard to do living in that city and seeing that park with them losing so much and 35,000 people at every game. It is incredible, the fans there, just like in St. Louis.
What are you talking about? Are you kidding me, dude? This fan base is garbage out
they go
here.
To every game.
I know it. No, they don't go to every game. They go to every game if the team is winning.
Really?
Okay.
I thought.
Oh my God, dude! Let me tell you something,
I gotta
man.
check that attendance. for last year.
2010. Well, because you know why? Because it's paid attendance. It's who's buying the tickets. So they sell out all their season tickets. But as soon as that team starts going into the tank, people are just giving tickets away left and right. I'm telling you flat out, this is a city that supports the team when it wins, defends every stupid move made. What? Aubrey Huff, he helped us win the World Series in 2010. Let's give him a 2-year deal. He's going to be amazing forever. Like, they are notorious. Marco Scutaro, he was like a World Series hero for us. Give him a 3-year deal, $75 million. Why the hell not? Dude, they are an atrocity here. Farhan Zaidi he's on mop-up duty. He's cleaning this out. I mean, I think they're still paying they're paying Dave Roberts to manage the Dodgers right now. I think his contract is still going on with them. It is disgusting. And when they're out of it, and you go to those odd years, maybe the attendance is still paid for, but that ballpark is barren.
Is it? Okay. Well, we'll find out that for sure this year. It's sad because Bochy is managing his final year, but that also tells you something too. He sees the writing on the wall. He's not going to survive. If the Giants win 64 and lose 99, would any manager survive back-to-back years of that? I always say that. If a manager loses 100 games 2 years in a row, do they go into that third year going, yeah, we're really backing this guy? It doesn't matter who you are. So a Hall of Fame career for Bochy, sure. But if you're a Giants fan, you just got to eat it this year. I mean, honestly, of all the ones we're talking about, like, do they even have a chance at 75 wins, man? Like, I just don't see that at all. I'm going under on that.
And, you take a look at Bochy, man. You want to talk about a guy who let himself go worse than I did. Oh, my Lord. It looks like he swallowed Hunter Pence. They didn't get rid of Hunter Pence. He just ate him.
Poor guy. Hall of Famer. Anyway, that's the one lock for last place.
That is easily the lock for last place. Easily. All right, so that's for them. Let's talk about the Diamondbacks. 75.5 is the total here. Last year they won 82. They lose Goldschmidt. They lose Pollock. They lose Corbin. It's not really like filling up those gaps with anything of substance, of anything substantial. Like Luke Weaver, no. He is not going to make the Diamondbacks forget about getting rid of him.
Probably not. This one is a tough one for me. I'm just not sure. You illustrate a good point. They did get rid of a lot of players for sure, but there is still some talent there, and that's what drives me right into that middle zone where they're at, because Escobar is underrated and he's good, and Peralta hit 30 bombs last year, and Jake Lamb, if he's healthy, can hit 30 bombs, and they have, Souza. There's just, you look at the team and you say, well, if everything went right and if all these guys were healthy, could they win 80? The answer is definitely yes. Even with the pitching that they have, it could also go the other way. I would lean toward the under, Howard, but I am not going to get on this one just because I feel like they did plug some of those holes, and they have a lot of guys that are questionable but have a ceiling of doing very well. So I'm just going to pass on this one. I don't have a strong feeling either way on it. And I feel like they'll be right in that range. And by the way, again, a team that don't have a lot of one-year dudes on the team, a lot of signed guys, young kids for many years that they're going to keep around there. They're not pawning off Luke Weaver at the deadline. They're not pawning off Eduardo Escobar after he just signed that contract. That's not happening. So just stay away from Arizona.
All right, let's avoid that. Let's go to Colorado. Westgate has them at 84.5. They won 91 last year. Everybody seems to be all in on Herman Marquez, Kyle Freeland. Suddenly, the Colorado Rockies pitchers are the belle of the fantasy ball. I don't necessarily know if that's 100% true. I think they do have talent. I just don't like the fact that they pitch half their game in Coors Field.
Sure.
They are supposedly going to have a healthy David Dahl coming back. They bring in Daniel Murphy to play first base. They've got some youth and possibly Garrett Hampson playing second, although they've got Ryan McMahon, who seems to be tearing it up this spring. They didn't really do anything to shore up the bullpen, which kind of unnerves me a little bit. I don't know. I mean, Nolan Arenado, though, he just signs that huge deal. What is it, 10-year extension he got? I mean, that's Rockies for life. 84.5. They win 91. I'm still going to tilt towards the over here. I don't love it, but I'm going to tilt towards the over. I do think that they've got the potential of winning 88 to 90 games based on what they've got, based on the fact that they're going to beat the snot out of the Giants on a regular basis. And I do think that they've got a better team than Arizona.
I think they have a better team than the Padres, too. So I will agree with you. I think that they will go over. And even if they're a little bit worse than last year, they're more or less bringing everybody back from last season. They have a couple of reinforcements in the minor leagues, but the third base position is an elite position for them. They have the top guy in the sport. The shortstop position is a top 5 guy for sure. If you don't believe me, look at Trevor Story's stats over the last couple of years are fantastic. Blackmon is still maybe not as good as he was, but he's still an elite player there. And you have 2 pitchers in Freeland and Marquez that have a lot of upside there as well. So, yeah, probably not a World Series team. But if Arizona takes a step back, and I think they will, and the Giants clearly are not a good team, they should beat up enough on those 2 teams to go over that number that you just gave. So I'll go over there.
Okay. All right. Dodgers 83.5, 92 wins. Are they worse by 9 games here?
No, they're the same team. I'll go over again on them. I mean, I don't get this one. I guess the whole thing is that when you look at WAR, Kershaw has a big WAR number. He's a big part of that team. And if you told me he ain't pitching this year, I don't know. At that point, Howard, I may have to take a closer look at it. But, I mean, I'll figure Kershaw makes 20 starts. And I still feel like they have enough pitching. Another team, Howard, not afraid at the trade deadline to make a move if they need to and get a little bit better. They'll do that. They'll have Seager the whole season. Bellinger still there, still a good player. Turner still good. The pitching is always good. They always piece the ninth inning together. They always have issues, by the way, the Dodgers 6th, 7th, and 8th inning every year. Why don't they ever they tried to, I guess, solve it this year with Joe Kelly. We'll see if he ends up being the guy. But I'll go over on LA pretty easily, too.
Okay. I'll go with the over on that also. I don't think that they got much worse, and who knows? Maybe Rich Hill actually did find the cure for his blisters, and maybe he does make more than 15 starts this year.
Maeda's still good, and now Urias could be healthy. Stripling is a good pitcher. They'll give him 20 starts probably one way or the other. I don't.
Yeah, see, that's going to be the key for them. I think is how well Stripling plays and how many starts they actually give him this year. Because I'm a big fan of his, actually.
He's good. He's good. There's no question that it's a different conversation if Kershaw doesn't pitch. But remember, if Kershaw makes 20 to 25 starts and he is 80% of the guy that he used to be, that's still good enough to put them over this total. It's not good enough to win the World Series. But we're only talking about winning 85, 86 games in a division that we just got done saying Arizona's going to be worse and San Francisco's going to be worse. They're not going to be better. So that definitely plays a factor. And the Dodgers will have some pressure this offseason to make some more moves. They added A.J. Pollock. You could go either way with that. I don't know that that's a huge upgrade from Puig. I mean, he's been hurt like every year of his career.
Every year.
So I'm like, okay, that's great if he's healthy, but this is just enough to get over that number.
All right. Well, now it all comes down to the San Diego Padres. 66 games they won last year. 78.5 is the number from the Westgate. Better? Well, I mean, let's take a look at this team here. I mean, really take a legit look at this team. You've got Will Myers and Eric Hosmer still there. You're adding Manny Machado. You're more than likely to see Fernando Tatis Jr. come up for at least the second half of the season. You've got Franchy Cordero, Manny Margot as possibilities in the outfield over there.
Your favorite guy?
Who? Hunter Renfroe? He's not my favorite.
Franmil.
Oh, fat-ass Franmil Reyes, right? Come on. The dude looks like he ate Bruce Bochy. It's unbelievable. But to me, really, the key here is the pitching. And whether or not we do see Matt Strahm take a step forward here, and he could actually be a really interesting aspect for them. Man, 78 is, again, because we're talking about, you think the Diamondbacks are better than the Padres.
I think the Diamondbacks are probably better than the Padres. It's close. But, yeah, I think they're probably better. I'm under on this number. I think it's too high. I think the Padres in 2 years from now will end up being in the 80s. But for this year, I'm going to go under this number.
I'm gonna go bold. I'm gonna take the over.
Okay, so we didn't disagree on many of them. So so sell me on how the Padres, let's call it 80 wins. How are the Padres going to get, what's going to happen that they're going to get to 80? Because 80 is a no joke number. Like that's a team that's competing for the division or for a wild card, let's say. We agree that LA wins the division again, right?
We agree that, well, I don't know if LA
maybe
wins
Colorado.
the division.
Okay, whatever. So what has to go right for San Diego to get to 80 wins? Tell me.
All right, well, they need to beat up, they need at least 15 wins against the Giants.
Right? And that's possible. That's possible. But which players are going to, because they don't have any players on that entire team outside of Machado that would go into the season that you would say is a star. None, Howard. 0, zip, nil, except for Machado. Okay? So who are the players that are going to get them to the 80?
All right, I am looking at their roster right now here. I like Hedges and Mejia as a tandem behind the plate. I think Hosmer's not a big power guy, but he can drive in runs.
He's good enough for what he does, but he's a above average player. I
think at some point we rid ourselves of Ian Kinsler. We move Urias over to second base. You bring in a guy like Tatis to play third. You move Machado over to shortstop.
Okay.
All right. Will Myers in the outfield. I think you're doing yourself a disservice not using Franchi Cordero and Manny Margot. Franmil Reyes, to me, he's a bat off the bench, and that's the problem.
That's the big one, though. That's the big one. Because if Franmil Reyes hits 30 home runs, then you're hitting your number.
Right.
They're going to have one of these guys step up.
He's such a defensive liability.
He is
such a defensive liability.
And you know what? The Tatis factor is also there, too. If this guy comes up and he's Acuna or he's Soto, then you got a shot at that happening. I just don't know when they're going to call him up. And the Padres pitching, everyone keeps talking about them. And look, I understand and you make great points about them, Howard, but you can't talk about the Marlins and say that they're not going to have these guys at the end of the season and then say that the Padres are. They're not. They have all of these young pitchers that aren't going to throw a lot of innings. It's not going to happen. Paddock is not throwing 150 innings this year, Howard. It is not happening. Neither is Straw.
He's not. Lucchesi might.
He was hurt a little bit last year too. Like there's just too many questions there for me. I think they'll be improved. I mean, they have Manny Machado. He's a great player. There's no doubt. They won 66 last year. Is that right? Is that the number?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, they could win 71, 72 games, 73, 76.
You can't make me not love them, Craig Mish. You can't make me.
The good thing about this is it's all arbitrary and we just have opinions on it. But I the Giants one to me of all the unders that we talked about seems so juicy. Like that's the one of all of these that I just can't see any scenario positive coming out for them. And the Phillies and Nationals, I do like the overs there too. Kind of the ones that we discussed, and the Cubs under.
Well, so give me your favorite one. Like when we talked about the American League, the Cubs Toronto under. Blue Jays were your favorite.
Cubs under.
Cubs under.
Yeah, Cubs under would be there. Giants under would be the other one.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
I don't want to get sucked in. I like Philly over, but I don't want to get sucked in there because this has happened too many times in baseball where some team gets all these free agents and we expect them to win everything and they don't. I do think that's going to happen with them, but it's not going to be one of my favorites. So I think those are probably the three.
All right. Well, there you go.
There you have it.
There you have it, folks. Those are the National League wins totals there. A la the Westgate, the Superbook over there, one of our favorites. That's going to do it for us here tonight. We got lots more to talk about though throughout the week. Tomorrow night's going to be fantastic. We're going to talk about the NCAA tournament. We're gonna go through that whole. We're gonna go through that whole thing. Make some picks.
We got 3 hours to kill here, Bar.
Yeah, just a few.
We took 48 minutes to do 15 teams in baseball. This could go.
Yeah, but you and I could sit here and yammer on about baseball over and over again. I mean, listen, as much basketball as I could sit and watch and talk about it, I'd much rather talk baseball all day long till the cows come home.
I'll tell you right now in advance. Here's a little bit of a preview. I got to do Friday's games. And honestly, I kind of like sometimes to see Thursday's games played to get a little bit of a feel for the flows before I do Fridays. But for the purposes of the live stream, I think we're going to do both. I think, unless we change.
Oh, we're going to do it all, baby.
I got a lot of underdogs. on. That's winning outright. But again, what we do here on Wager Alarm is listen. It's all fun and games to do these little pools and to do the brackets. But what does that really prove? That you can make a circle of a team. When we're talking about betting, you're getting serious there. And I see a lot of underdogs covering in these games. And I think a handful of them are going to win also, but we'll jump into that tomorrow night. I'm not talking about like the 1 seeds or the 2s, but from 3 on, I think that there's a good chance a lot of teams don't cover.
I feel like we're going to see a lot of unders as well.
It's been an under heaven.
Right? It's going to be like
under heaven. It is Saturday. This past Saturday. First of all, the unders have come in unbelievable in college basketball this year. And if you don't think, go take a look at the results and you'll see. Luckily, I was on that. I don't know how. Got so lucky all year long. But then I thought to myself, when they get to the conference games this weekend, they'll probably start going over. 16 games were played Saturday. 11 of them went under. 11.
Dude, when you look at teams like Wisconsin, Virginia, I mean, it's slow pace. They shut it down.
They're just dribbling. No, you. Okay, I'll hold the ball a little bit longer. They just keep going. So, along
with that, Gene Hackman and Hoosiers kind of 5 passes before you even shoot the ball. 5.
There are a couple of teams in this. Yale is a high scoring team. There's a few high scoring teams that are going to be playing on Thursday from the analysis that I've looked at for sure. And I think there's one over that I think I like, but in general, I just see a lot. And again, what happens in the close games in college basketball? They take all 35 seconds of every possession. What you have to worry about is a team going against another team in college and you have an under and they're up 6 or 7 or 8 with a minute left. Howard, the fouling starts, you get crushed. They will not stop fouling until there's no time left. Those games go way over. You keep wondering why they keep fouling. The game's over. This is the last game of the season. They're playing on national TV. They foul with 50 seconds, 48 seconds, 35 seconds, 30 seconds, and you think you have an under, and you don't, and the game goes over. when it's 1 or 2 possessions, that doesn't happen, and the clock goes nice and all the way down to 0, and it's the last possession of the game, and then it's over. But you got to really beware of those teams and betting unders when there's blowouts or when it's an 8 to 10 point spread, because the other team's just going to start fouling like mad because they know it's their last game ever. What's there to lose?
It's going to be an interesting one. We're going to cover all the NCAA tournament tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here, a Wager Alarm live stream. You don't want to miss it. In addition to that, Friday night, guys, you don't want to miss out. That's when we're doing the MLB player props. And start talking about some MVP possible candidates, some Cy Young candidates as well. We will be 2 games into the American League season, but I think we'll be all right with that.
Yeah, I'll be sleeping during those games.
Oh, why? I'm going to be up, wide awake, baby, wide awake. That's going to do it for us here for the Wager Alarm live stream. Big thanks to our producer today, Steve Pimental. Why? Because Matt Sells is taking a vacation because he needs all that time off. No, I'm just kidding. But big thanks to Steve for producing. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. This has been the Wager Alarm live stream. We'll catch you next time.